Okay, hey everybody, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today, I have a really special review for you guys from the brand Casio. A little about them: they were founded back in 1974, and their first watch was the Casio. They are Japanese in origin, known for their wide range of digital watch offerings, from lines like G-Shock to EDIFICE to Oceanus, even more so playing within the analog space as well. Now, in terms of type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics and that you're looking for something you can wear every day. Of course, you're going to find that versatile blend of both sporty and dressy attributes. This is their EDIFICE Automatic. Yes, the EFK-100YD-7AJF. And that is the Japanese, or the JDM, Japanese Domestic Market nomenclature. In the US, I believe it's known as the EFK100D-7A. And it's essentially Casio's first automatic watch, embodying the edifice spirit of synergy between timepiece engineering and the world of high-performance cars. These go for about $280 USD MSRP and are often sold out. And if you look right now, depending on, I guess, when you're watching this video, you're probably finding them sold out in a lot of places. But I secured this one from Sakura Watches. Currently, looking at the exchange rate, it's about $218, which is outstanding. So you can't really argue with that. Also, there's a code for you guys to use, which I'll put down in the description, and it's essentially a 3% discount code you can use for any Casio, Seiko, or Citizen watch. And yeah, this would fall within that category. And this is interesting, right? Like, I've reviewed plenty of Casios on the channel, but never mechanical ones. So this is really, really fun for me. So with all that said, let's go and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, now this is a good looking watch. Like, let's just get that out of the way. They have this really cool electroform dial that mimics the texturing of a forged carbon fiber. And of course, there are options where you can opt for actual forged carbon fiber, but this look here is really fantastic. In terms of dimensions, 38.8 millimeters in diameter. For my calipers, about 12.5 millimeters thick, and then lug to lug about 43.5 millimeters, and then it's actually 48.5 if we measure from that center integrated end link there. So the case itself is relatively short, but it is a bit elongated thanks to that kind of male integrated end link, which doesn't do too much damage, but it does affect the way that the watch is going to drape, because it is quite an angular, stout piece, as you can see here. The movement inside isn't known for its thinness, but it is known for its robustness, which is good. Now, this is all stainless steel in terms of construction, brushed with polished accents, and I think they did a great job with the finishing on this piece. It is quite handsome, and I can't really argue with that, especially at the price point. Even if you're paying full price, as long as you're not paying a marked up price, this should still be an under $300 watch, close to about just around under $220 if you're going to get it from Sakura. Now, the crystal is a flat sapphire. I didn't see anything about inner anti-reflective coating, so I'm gonna guess it doesn't have it, but I'll say it's not really hyper affected by that, because you can see the clarity is still quite nice. Now, the crown is a push-pull crown, not screw down. It is also unsigned. And then the movement inside, you can actually see it thanks to the display case back. Some of you might recognize that. It's an automatic Seiko Instruments NH35A, which has a 41-hour power reserve and beats at 3 Hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of that beat rate. So relatively smooth sweeping seconds hand there. Not the highest beat or even a mid beat. It would be considered kind of a low beat. Not the lowest of the low, but, you know, lower for sure. Now, getting into that dial, the electroform forged carbon fiber style texturing looks fantastic. I gotta say, especially with the white, it has this pale silvery tone to it, and it really ties into what people love right now, which is textured dials, thanks to brands like Grand Seiko. You do also get a nice sloped chapter ring with those applied indices laid on top of it. And it's very sharp. I mean, definitely very reminiscent of what you might find in more expensive Citizen watches. So very cool to see all of this happening at a very entry level price point. So kudos to Casio for keeping it Casio here in terms of affordability. Now, when it comes to the date, it is at 6 o'clock, which I think most people will enjoy. I think very smart move on Casio's part to do that, because that is something that I think most modern connoisseurs seem to enjoy, as well as, of course, non-connoisseurs won't really mind it at all. They're not going to say, "Oh, I don't like that." It's not, which some people will say when it comes to that 4.5 date placement from time to time. Also, since this is a white dial model, you do have that white disc, and I think that's nice. I wouldn't say they necessarily went out of the way to color match it, but in this case, it works out. Also, you're going to have multi-finishing there on the hands, apart from the seconds hand, which is going to be polished all the way through. The hour and minute hand do have various finishing. You get a bit of... I want to say there's some brushing on there, but you know what? Looking at it closer, that might actually just be loom. So there you have that, which the loom does glow green to get into those details. Now, the water resistance on here, 10 bar or 100 meters water resistance, which is great for an everyday watch. You do have integrated lugs here, solid H-links and N-links pin and collar construction, and this does taper from about a 21.7 millimeter flare, because it does step out quite a bit, as you can see there, and then it tapers down quite nicely to about just under 18 millimeters at 17.9 millimeters, and then the milled clasp that is nicely signed with the EDIFICE text there is actually a 21 millimeter push button clasp there, all fully milled. Very nice. Everything fits together quite finely. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears quite beautifully. Of course, with those kind of protruding male integrated end links, it is going to have a bit of a lift there off of the wrist, especially considering that the case shape itself is relatively flat on the underside. It doesn't angle down too much. So if you do have a much smaller wrist, I will say my wrist is relatively small in terms of looking down width-wise. Of course, circumference-wise, at 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. That is on the larger side of average, but it's actually quite a tall wrist, as you can see. So it's not just super wide, flat, and accommodating. So I'll say for me, the drape is nice. It works well enough. Not ideal by any means, but definitely far from a deal breaker. Might be a deal for some, though, with smaller wrists. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you can notice quite a bit of perspective distortion. All of a sudden, my wrist seems slimmer and the watch seems wider. But if I keep my wrist nice and low, hey, look at that. All of a sudden, you're seeing the sides of the bracelet more, and that watch seems a lot more centered. So what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame so that we can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And my goodness, is this a looker? The H-links really catch the light beautifully. Also, of course, all of the angles, the facets, the bevels, it all comes together quite well there. And you can see, again, closer look on the wrist. While not ultra thin, it's far from unattractive. This looks very good. And of course, one thing I like to bring up when it comes to watches, actually look at this angle. It actually looks very thin when you look at it from there. Look at that. But I will say not everything needs to be, I like my cars low. Not everybody wants a car slammed on the ground. Some people like a good SUV or, a wagon with a bit of a clearance there. So, can't really say that there's a right or wrong way to do this. I know most people do kind of lean towards wanting a more slender watch. But again, that's definitely something that is a preference that we kind of make a deal more so than it is when it comes to the reality of what makes a watch arguably better or worse. Now, Ooh, this thing looks awesome. That dial is fantastic. There's so much life in this dial, and at this price point, there are going to be watches that try to do a dial like this. They're not executing like this. Also, look at the indices. Take a look at the micro finishing on the indices. Now, those batons are not high polished. They have micro striations all over them that are going to catch the light and reflect it in different ways. Ooh, this thing's good. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, not a lot of loom, guys. And that's because, again, a bit on the dressier side of things. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of low light transition. As you guys can see, with barely any light even hitting the surface of the dial, it's really just bouncing off of the ceiling there. You're still going to get quite a bit of contrast, which is nice. But yeah, you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming down to buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. And my goodness, look at that dial. It has almost like a moon-like quality to it there, with just the way, the depth that you're going to see in it. Although the dial itself isn't super deep, it's just really finely done. Look at that. The swirls, the depth that you get, the shimmer. It's really fantastic. And I love that it's juxtaposed against, these beautifully beveled and micro finished indices, and as well as that beautifully finished sloped chapter ring, and even that outer ring that kind of encompasses the texturing on the main dial. Again, just in terms of design, it doesn't get much better than this. Now, in terms of execution, sure, you can get better. You can get thinner, you can get a higher beat movement, more accurate, all those things. But design-wise, this is pretty killer. I would love to see them do more premium variations. They did do some premium variations, of course, but they were more about the material and less about kind of an elevated version of this, where you're going to get maybe things like AR coating or a tighter tolerance on a thinner movement. Now, very, very handsome, guys. Look at that dial. Ooh, I could do this. I could do this all day, to quote Cap. But hey, let's get into some closing thoughts on this one. On the wrist, bold, angular wear. Decent drape does conform well enough to the wrist, even with the longer integrated center lug, which again might be an issue for some, not an issue for me personally. In terms of model variants, it's also available in a green or a blue dial tone. And then you can also even get like an actual black forged carbon dial for a little bit more. And then for even more, there even was a limited forged carbon case version, which I really wish I was able to snag one of those. Those are very, very cool, and I think hit a lot. Even more, as much as bullet points as this hits, that hits it even to a higher extent, especially tying in to the motorsports aesthetic. So yeah, you can get this with a forged carbon fiber dial, even a forged carbon fiber case, and that one's paired to a rubber deployant strap. Now, in terms of comparable models, I think these Casios compare really well against, real popular watches right now, like the Citizen Tsuyosa or the Tissot PRX, especially considering the quality at this price point. These are kind of awesome. Like, that's wild. So for me, guys, bottom line, the EFK100 is Casio's first mechanical wristwatch. That alone makes it an instant collectible. I mean, it's just not what they're known for. And even if these do terrible and never sell, it's still collectible because it's just so different. And it's their first. So I think that's awesome. Then you add to all of that, how great this looks and how it taps into Grand Seiko textured dial trends that are going around as of late, which every brand is out there trying to figure out how to make a more interesting dial. And then you have, of course, this also does have some crossover into that Genta-inspired integrated steel sports watch space. And honestly, as a collector, you can cover a lot of bases and check even more boxes with just this one watch. So I was really glad to find a non-marked up in-stock version available at sakurawatches.com. So hopefully you guys are able to do the same if you are interested in this piece. Again, as a collector, you wanted to try an integrated steel sports watch. You wanted something that has a really amazing dial, but you want something that's really affordable but has like a lot of fun in-house tricks up its sleeve as well. Or you want something that's Japanese but not super expensive, or so hard to get that you're going to be paying exorbitant markups. This hits a lot of sweet spots there within the market. But let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you're not already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.